How to prosper much faster. There's a paradox that almost no one is willing to hear, but it explains why so many people strive so hard and remain in the same place. Thriving isn't about working harder, nor about waiting for the right time. In fact, the more a person runs aimlessly, the further they get from what they desire. Strange, right? But that's exactly what happens every day to intelligent, dedicated, and faithful people, too busy to realize they're wasting life's most precious asset. This might sound controversial, but someone needs to say it. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's an excess of distraction. It's not a lack of talent. It's an absence of defined focus. And it's not a lack of faith. It's faith without structured action. Most people believe that prosperity naturally takes time, when in reality what takes time is repeating silent mistakes every day. The curious thing is that some people achieve in 1 year what others don't build in 10. And no, this has nothing to do with luck. Here's a counterintuitive truth. Prosperity accelerates when you stop trying to improve a little bit of everything and decide to profoundly transform a few right things. Napoleon Hill observed this in the world's greatest achievers, and the principles he identified continue to work today, because they deal with the mind, decision, and human behavior. When these principles align with purpose and consistent action, the result seems fast, almost supernatural. What if the problem was never a lack of time, but how you use each hour? What if prospering faster doesn't require magic, but rather simple choices made relentlessly? In the next few minutes, you'll realize there's a clear, applicable, and accessible path, even for those with little time, many responsibilities, and who have already tried everything. The question is, are you ready to hear something that could completely change the way you live, work, and make decisions starting today? The clash between being busy and being thriving. Napoleon Hill, he noticed something kind of uncomfortable, one of those things that gives you a tap. In my conscience. You can spend the whole day running around and still not get anywhere. And the most ironic thing? On the outside, it looks like productivity. On the inside, it's just noise. It's like that moment when someone opens 20 tabs in their browser, feels important, and in the end, hasn't finished anything. Oops, because being busy might fill your schedule, but it doesn't fill your life with results, you know? The stark difference becomes apparent when you look at the why behind the effort. Being busy means reacting. Thriving means building. Being busy means constantly putting out fires. Thriving means creating a plan to prevent fires from starting. And here's a point most people avoid. It's not a lack of time, it's a lack of direction. And direction is everything. There's no way around it. When the mind lacks purpose, it becomes a hostage to the urgency of others. The feed, notifications, and anxiety disguised as a busy routine. To turn this into something practical, you start with a simple, even somewhat funny test. If I filmed your day, would it look like the life of someone who's going to succeed, or the life of someone who's just surviving? Then you do an honest inventory. Which tasks generate a future, and which only generate exhaustion? And to help your mind get on track, I recommend readings that are almost a reset mental. Think and Grow. Rich. Napoleon Hill. For Purpose and Decision. Deep Work. Cal Newport. For Real Discipline. And Essentialismo. Greg McKeown. To Learn to Say No Without Guilt. But there's a detail that seems small, but changes everything. When you start to separate movement from progress, you discover that prosperity has more to do with conscious choices than with desperate effort. And then the game changes, because the mind finally stops running in circles and starts running in a straight line. But there's a silent thief who steals that straight line every day without making a sound. And when you show where that time is slipping away, the person can never unsee it. Where time is really leaking out, and almost nobody notices. No one loses time by accident. Time slips away through repeated choices. It's not the big mistake that ruins the year. It's the small habit that repeats itself every single day. An innocent scroll here, an unproductive conversation there, just 5 more minutes. Before you know it, the day is over. And the curious thing is that the person swears they didn't have time, when in reality they had too much time. It was just poorly invested. To make this visible, there's an almost uncomfortable yet liberating exercise. For 3 days, write down where each block of time ends up. It doesn't need to be perfect, just honest. Then the classic villain appears. A purposeless cell phone, traffic without strategy, mental fatigue caused by a lack of priorities. It's at this moment that it clicks. Time doesn't disappear, it changes hands. Either you govern your time, or someone else governs it for you. Simple as that. And here comes a practical, not theoretical shift. Physically bringing closer what matters and distancing yourself from what distracts. Want to study? Book on the table, not stored on the shelf. Want to work out? Sneakers in plain sight, not hidden. Want to save money? Avoid the path of temptation. Napoleon Hill calls this smart environment because willpower is limited, but the environment works 24/7 without complaint. However, when time starts to be reclaimed, an inevitable question arises. Okay, now that there's extra time, in what exactly should it be invested to generate real prosperity? Defined purpose, the point where the speed changes. He learned, often the hard way, that focus isn't about doing many things well. It's about choosing one thing and doing it better than yesterday. Most people want to prosper, but they hold on to vague desires like, I want to improve my life. I want to earn more. It sounds nice, but it doesn't move the needle. Prosperity accelerates when desire becomes a clear decision, with a deadline, criteria, and commitment. That's when purpose ceases to be inspiration and becomes practical direction. To make this a reality, I recommend transforming the desire into a written statement, almost like a personal contract. Something simple, direct, and even a little bold. Over the next 12 months, I will develop this specific skill and generate this additional income. No poetry, no mysticism, just clarity. And to fuel this decision, I suggest studying those who have already walked this path. Napoleon Hill, of course, but also Brian Tracy, Goals and Execution, James Clear, Habits that Support Focus, and Dale Carnegie, Communication that Opens Doors. The right knowledge shortens years of trial and error. The point that almost no one realizes is that focus generates speed, because it eliminates emotional waste. When a person knows exactly what they want, they suffer less from comparison, distraction, and anxiety. Each no becomes a relief, not a loss. But maintaining this focus requires something that doesn't appear in short videos: an aligned internal state, a mind and body working as allies. At this point, the conversation becomes even deeper. Complete transformation, mind, body, and spirit in perfect harmony. Napoleon Hill, he realized that trying to prosper by only focusing on money is like trying to run with only one shoe. You might get somewhere, but you tire quickly and get hurt. Real prosperity accelerates when mind, body, and spirit walk together, in the same rhythm. The mind needs clarity, the body needs energy, and the spirit needs direction. When one of these falls behind, progress stalls, and the person doesn't even understand why. In practice, he teaches something simple and not at all glamorous. Small routines, done every day. 15 minutes of strategic reading. Think and Grow Rich for vision, atomic habits, for consistency. 20 minutes of physical movement, walking, home workouts, anything that gets the body waken up. And 5 minutes of intentional silence, prayer, reflection, gratitude. It's not about heroic intensity. It's about intelligent consistency, little by little, day by day. The curious thing is that when this trio aligns, the person begins to feel something different. Less anxiety, more focus, more courage to act. Decisions become faster. Procrastination loses its power. But this new internal state creates a demand. Now it's no longer possible to live breaking promises to oneself. And that's exactly where the next level of prosperity is born. The one that comes from the confidence built through daily practice. The confidence that comes from repeated action and speeds everything up. Napoleon Hill, he usually explains it in a very straightforward way. The brain doesn't believe what you think. It believes what you repeatedly do. That's why so many people pray, plan, dream, and yet freeze when it comes time to act. It's not a lack of faith. It's a lack of internal evidence. When a person promises themselves something and doesn't keep it, they lose credibility with themselves. When they do keep their promises, even small things, something changes inside, something clicks. In practice, he recommends starting ridiculously small, with almost no chance of failure. Wake up 20 minutes earlier, read 5 pages, walk for 15 minutes, save a symbolic amount of money. It seems like little, but each completed action becomes a mental record of identity. I do what I say, and when this is repeated for weeks, the brain stops sabotaging, stops questioning, and begins to cooperate. Trust ceases to be emotional and becomes structural. Napoleon Hill, he uses a simple analogy. It's like training an invisible muscle. At first it's weak, it trembles, it complains. Then it becomes stable, reliable. And this muscle supports bigger decisions, changing careers, starting a project, investing in knowledge, saying no to distractions. But when this inner confidence is consolidated, something interesting happens. Opportunities begin to recognize who you've become, and that opens the door to the final level of the journey. The decision that separates those who understand from those who transform. Knowledge doesn't change life. Understanding doesn't change destiny. What changes everything is consistent application. Everything discussed here, time, focus, purpose, discipline, faith with action, only works when it becomes a daily choice. Otherwise, it just becomes another video that the person agrees with, gets excited about for a few minutes, and forgets about tomorrow. So the question isn't whether this makes sense. It does. The real question is, what are you going to do differently today? What distraction will you eliminate right now? What simple habit will you adopt tomorrow, without negotiation? What small promise will you make to yourself and keep to begin rebuilding your inner confidence? Because prosperity doesn't begin with a grand event, it begins with a decision followed by action. Then another, and another. This will make you think. If you continue living exactly the same way for the next 12 months, where will you be? And if you decide to reclaim your time, align your mind, body, and spirit, and act with intelligent discipline, who can you become? Don't answer quickly. Answer with action. Write down your goal. Organize your environment. Take the first step today. Time is passing right now, and it doesn't come back. If this content brought you clarity, comment below. What decision will you make today? Share this with someone who is busy but feels they were born for more. And if you want to continue learning how to thrive with purpose, clarity, and practical action, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications and walk with us. Because here, the idea isn't just to inspire, it's to help you become a different person.